Welcome back to the loading zone. Today's deep thought: trucks have big wheels. Welcome to Brake Check, live on FreightWaves TV. I'm Charles Gracie, and well, right now in trucking, you've got drivers losing their licenses. Some drivers are out there wondering if they're going to be able to keep doing the profession that they know and love, or if they should be doing the profession that they're in right now. And then you got fraud running rampant all over the place. Are we solving the problems, or are we just shifting through them? That is what we are going to embark on to find the answer to right here. We're going to be talking to Ryan Joyce from GenLogs and George Rivera, who is a truck driver and a DACA recipient. These people are going to be sharing their stories, their insights, and help us get to the bottom of the problem. But before we get into all of that, I need you to hit that like, subscribe, and follow for all your top Freightcast right here on FreightWaves. Make sure to follow Brake Check. Make sure to follow FreightWaves as, well, we're covering everything that is trucking today. But up first, before we get into our interview, we're going to talk about a news article that directly aligns with the conversation we're going to be having with our first guest. We're going to talk about Indiana's new CDL rule that's pushing ahead on English proficiency. This one was out by John Kingston, and he goes on to talk about, as of April 1st, it was not an April Fool's Day joke. Indiana is moving forward in restricting CDL ownership based on language proficiency and residency requirements. And that was being implemented live on April Fool's Day. Indiana's legislator passed through both House and Senate that a bill that would require English language proficiency, restrict CDL ownership by existing non-domiciled holders of that permit. The restriction of the non-domiciled holders took effect on April 1st. This bill came into existence as House Bill 1200 was believed to move the Hoosier state further along than any other state in cracking down on issues of English language proficiency and residency requirements. It goes on to say that some recipients may be okay. It does have exemptions for H-2A, H-2B, and E-2 visa holders, but unless they have met the requirement of being non-domiciled, they would need to seek a separate CDL. It also goes on to say that English language proficiency, being able to converse with the general public, understand highway safety signs and signals in English language, respond to official inquiries, and make entries and reports in logs in English. Otherwise, they were going to be removed. There's also big fines associated with this. So since the law's creation, if somebody was to be found to have broken this law, it's a $5,000 fine to the individual and a $50,000 fine to the business that hired the individual. We've talked a lot about if you want people to comply, well, then you got to hit them in the wallet, and that seems to be what they're trying to achieve with this. We're going to have this conversation and more, but I'm going to bring on our next guest because they're directly in this conversation. George, how you doing, my guy?
What's up, man? How are you today? Thanks for having me on, man.
Brother, I'm excited that you were able to come on the show. I know you're out there moving freight for as long as you're allowed to move freight out there. It looks like you're in your truck right now. Where are you at right now?
Yeah. I'm right here in Denver, Colorado.
All right. So tell everyone that's watching, who is George and what's your story?
Yeah, so my name is George, and I have DACA. I'm a DACA recipient, and I'm actually the one that's been advocating and fighting all this non-domicile situation. We had to sue FMCSA, and we got it paused the first time, and we're working on getting paused the second time. And when I'm out here getting pretty much every time people hear my story, they hear about me fighting it, they're like, well, why are you against English? If you don't speak English, you shouldn't be driving a truck. Obviously, you guys hear me speaking. I speak perfect English, better English than Spanish, but I'm not fighting EOP. EOP and this new rule is a whole separate thing. My thing is, if you guys want to fix problems, they should enforce the existing rules instead of throwing a big blanket over all of us.
Well,
and pretty much,
So you are correct. There is a blanket, and there's a lot of conversations going around that blanket. People are aware, at least from the conversations I had, that there are some people that are caught in the crossfire on this one. Now, a lot of people are justifying that with the good for the greater or the better good here is to protect the general motoring public. The greater good is to have safety on the roadways. And if that means a couple people are going to be inconvenienced early on, people have accepted that. But I think that's easy to accept when you don't get to talk to those people who are being affected by it. So you actually were at
Yeah,
Matt's. You got to have
correct,
an
correct.
encounter with.
And it's not a couple of people, it's thousands. There's thousands of us that we're in the same position. What they're doing is that, yes, there is bad apples, but they're generalizing those bad apples amongst all of us. And we always get this phrase thrown around, well, Biden's open borders, let a bunch of people in. And I always like to say, well, it's not the question of how many of those people became truckers, it's how they got their CDL if they don't speak English. EOP should have prevented that. And if rules were taken away, or like the guidelines were reduced, then how am I being blamed for that stuff,
No, I get that. And so you guys were at Match. You guys got to have an encounter with Duffy and Bars. We're going to throw that up real quick because I think it provides context. What we have there is a picture of the document from the FMCSA. Oh, there we go. There's the video we're looking for. So,
I'm actually a non-domicile. Yeah. And I'm under DACA. I've been here since 2001. Yeah. And I'm in jeopardy pretty much for losing my CDL.
So the problem is not that you're non-domiciled. We have rules in place on how the license should be issued.
Right.
And this is a space where if you came into the country and you're DACA, you've been here for a while.
I've been here.
If you came into the country and you've been here for a year and a half,
right.
And a great way to make a living is to say, I'm going to go get a commercial driver's license,
right.
and you paid. It didn't go through a school because it was a CDL mill,
right.
and you have a third-party tester that didn't actually test you for skills to get a license. And I have people dying. I'm going to change the rules.
Right.
And obviously,
I totally agree with
you
the
can speak English too, right? You can speak English, so it's like it's not every non-domiciled CDL.
Exactly.
What I'm telling you is a lot of the problems have been in non-domiciled CDL.
And I've seen it for the past 4 or 5 years.
So that's
I totally agree with that. All that.
Yep. So people that do things right and are following the rules, you're not going to see problems.
So tell us what took place here.
So, I mean, right there, kind of right there, it was the most important part was when you cut it off right there. But he's like, people that are following the rules, you're not going to see a problem. And then he's like, well, I have DACA. Should I be worried because my license is in jeopardy? And he's like, he shouldn't. And then that's when I screamed out. I was like, DACA is being affected. DACA is being affected. And then he's like, no, it's not. So those stuff are very frustrating because I'm like, well, what do you mean it's not? Like, we are included in the list. We know DACA for some reason fell in that crack. Because one thing is that we're not here illegally, but we are not, we're like almost there, it's just a matter of time before we become citizens, as far as like in my case, right, I have 3 more years to go. So we're not here illegally. So every time I hear this phrase, we're taking these illegals that speak no English off the roads. I'm not understanding, what do you mean by illegal and what do you mean by not speaking English? I understand that there's problems in the industry, like I've been saying. I understand that there's bad apples, but like I've said all along, that document that you showed earlier, that FMCSA one was given out at the MATS. It's one-sided English. The other side was in Chinese or Mandarin, right? So that document itself is proof to me that, they said that was in 2019 and it shouldn't have been given out. But the sole fact that stuff like that exists is like FMCSA knew all along that there's people out there that can't speak English, and the fact that they had to go out of their way and make material like this to give out, it tells me that they knew there was people. They knew of this problem. They knew it. They let it happen, and now it got out of hand. And what is the best way to do it? Instead of enforcing the existing EOP laws, they just go and make a new law, a new rule, and throws all of us out for their mistakes. And that's what I'm advocating for.
So let's talk about some of the tension that's happening out there. There are people that are watching this right now that say that stricter enforcement is long overdue and safety is part of the bigger picture. What do you say to those people that think that this is in the interest of safety?
Well, they say there's the safety, but I hear a lot of talk about how the rates are going to get better and the rates and this and that. So I'm like, if it's about safety, what happened to innocent until proven guilty? If they're accusing us of not speaking English and being here illegally, even if they had to tell me, hey, go in and retest, go in and resubmit, I'm sure all of us would do it. Like, why can't we just go on retest and resubmit our paperwork? It is not my fault if I take my paperwork In Utah, they always done it the way they scan my documents and they send it through the SAVE program. I guess some states weren't doing it. And all this stuff with the DMVs, why are we getting punished for the DMV's fault? I get the safety part. When it comes down to the numbers, though, the numbers speak facts. You can't argue with numbers. Yes, there's accidents that are happening, but 17 accidents amongst thousands and thousands of accidents. I mean, how is that is that really justify us, all of us losing our CDL for the people that made the mistake?
So you and I had a conversation. I get to talk to two different sides of the industry with what I get to do here. And every day I get to talk to drivers. A lot of drivers feel pretty strongly about this legislation. Now, they also understand that there is a group of people, the group of people that you're representing in this conversation, the DACA recipients that have been here. Do you understand English? You guys have been here since what year was it?
I mean, I got so you have in order to get DACA, you had to been here before 2007 consistently. Before 2007, you can't just go today and apply for DACA. That is over. The window has closed. You had to been 2007 and under 16 to apply for DACA. Right now, we can only renew. You cannot apply for it. So I could guarantee you, I don't want to say 100%, but at least 90% of us speak perfect English because we're all raised here.
So you guys on the,
that gets thrown,
go ahead.
Go ahead. Sorry.
So one question
that
is
gets thrown
English.
out, like, well, yeah, English. Sorry. One of the questions that get thrown out, like, well, you've been here your whole life. Why haven't you became a citizen? DACA was never created for it to be this long. It was supposed to be a temporary thing while the Congress and the government got their stuff together and helped us out. But we've been tossed around from administration to administration like a hot potato. We're like the foster child that never gets adopted. And when I say that, I'm like, we were raised here. We went to the schools here. I can tell you the Pledge of Allegiance right now, the United States. I don't know the one in Mexico. Mexico is where I was born, but I don't know it. This is my country to me. And I have, I say this a lot, man. I wish I could show you my tattoos. I got tattoos of a road that doesn't, of a country that thinks I don't want to be here. And the thing is that when it comes to DACA, the goalpost keeps getting moved. We speak the perfect English. Had I taken the test in Spanish, I would have failed it. So we meet all the requirements. We get vetted every year and a half. We have to go and get our fingerprints taken to get reapproved. So in a sense, I'm more vetted than an ordinary driver. When I say me, it's like in my category, and that's just what I'm throwing out there. That's information that people don't know, and people don't know what they don't know, and that's what I'm out here doing, just informing people. Like, hey, we're out here. We're not against America. They're like, sorry, because I get this word a lot. Sorry, buddy, America first. Hey, man, I'm all for it. I'm an American myself. I'm just not on paper, and it's just a matter of time.
No, that's good stuff. So, what would you want regulators or lawmakers to understand before making these decisions?
The stuff is that don't cut down the whole tree for the bad apples. We understand that there's stuff that are happening that shouldn't be happening, but there's current rules existing that should prevent that. Now, if the previous administration or people before that lighting up the rules or people were putting strings, why are we being blamed for all that? That's what I'm saying. I wish they could take a bigger look at exactly what is. I frankly, if I could be honest with you, I don't even know why I'm in that category of non-domicile. The word itself doesn't make sense to me because I live here. I'm not going anywhere. So I don't know. Non-domicile is somebody that's temporarily based on the definition of the word. And if you search it up on Google, my license used to say limited term, and I didn't even know what non-domicile was until I Googled this. It's somebody temporarily. Well, I'm here. I'm not. This is my home. I have my business. I'm a homeowner, and I'm living the American dream as an immigrant, man. And I'm not saying that in a way to throw it in nobody's face, but I'm like, I'm doing what I have to do, and now it's like a slap in the face because I'm like, what did I do wrong?
So when you're looking at all these different conversations that are shaping this environment that you're navigating in, what's the temperature check of the room right now? Do you feel like you have the support, or do you feel like it's falling on deaf ears?
If I could be honest with you, once people hear me out, I want to say 80% of them are like, man, I didn't know that. And then you have the 20% that are just, there's a left and a right, and right now there's a far left and a far right, and people they just don't want to hear it. And they're like, well, you're not American and you're not a citizen. Trucking should be only for U.S. citizens. And I mean, what can I argue with that? I'm not a citizen. It's not a secret. Everybody knows. But most of the people that I talk to, once they hear me out, at Matt's, I received a lot of support. I spoke to the Lila's parents. I spoke to the ATU. I spoke to OIDA. I spoke, we approached Duffy, and we approached FMCSA, and we received a lot of support. But again, we can't please everybody. And to those people, all I'm saying is like, hey, man, like, make me retest, make me recertify. How much I gotta pay? Like, let's do it. And I understand America first. I'm American myself, even though you don't like me saying that. I'm American, man, and it's I just don't have a paper that says that, but I got a busted knee, man. But if I gotta go fight some war or something, let me know. Like I got what do I gotta do at this point? We've been here our whole life, and we're just waiting our turn. And these rules are for DACA. And I invite your audience to look up what DACA is instead of just commenting. Well, DACA should never. Whatever your argument would be, research first what DACA is, and then I just want people to get more informed on the situation. That's what I'm doing.
No, I get that. So, one of the things we do is we like to ask the tougher questions here, and that's in a spirit to get to the bottom of it. So, my hard stop question for you, George, is can you look people in the eye right now and say, people in this position keeping their CDLs for the right reasons in the situation you're in, is it doing the right thing for the industry? Is it doing the right thing for safety? Are we looking at too narrow of a picture? Like, honestly, in your opinion, is this the right move to be making for the larger environment of trucking right now? Or is this short-sighted?
I think it's very one-sided. The fact that I'm on here, I appreciate you having me on here, but I've struggled a lot. I've struggled a lot getting my message out in the air, even with like certain news outlets, that you hear this narrative. And this is the thing. This is the narrative that gets pushed around. You see it all over the place. We're getting rid of these illegals that speak no English, that are a danger to the roads and are unqualified. I meet all those criteria. I speak perfect English. I'm vetted more than other people, and I've been doing this for 12 years. My message to everybody is like, we have to look at all sides and take the numbers. Don't just go. Is the difference big difference between how many accidents are caused by non-domiciles and how many are like aired and nationally broadcast? Because there's accidents happening every day. FreightWaves themselves have said it's over 5,000 and 17. I'm not justifying any of those accidents. One is too many. But the bottom line is that what's the right number? At what point do we become the main attention of those 5,000 accidents? There's bigger stuff going out there. And if there is an issue with the English, there's an issue with the safety. Look at the existing rules that were changed for some reason by people before the administration. Don't just put a big blanket over us. Enforce your current rules. And that's what I'm going about,
Well, and we've said a lot. We've had a lot of conversations about we need more enforcement, not more regulation. A lot of the regulations we're talking about, English language proficiency, that's not new. What's new is the fact that it's become a center point conversation around this. English language proficiency has always been there. As far as the non-domiciled CDLs, those were something that got brought in to allow people to go to school across state lines. They had since been bastardized to become the current form that it's been utilized in now. But that's not your fault. That's not the individuals that got the license fault. That's the government's fault for allowing it to get to the point that it's at.
Pretty much. And to be real with you, I've done myself research, and I've had people on social media say it started in the early 2000s. Then you have some people say, oh, it started in 2016, which doesn't make sense. I got my CDL in 2014. Then you have people like ATU. They've said, well, it all happened in 2019 when the ATA. You have people from FreightWaves said, oh, it happened in 2019. Everybody has a different theory of how this non-domicile situation came about. But the fact is that I went to the DMV, I took the test in English, I submitted my documents, and they gave me my license. And this happened 12 years ago. So now suddenly they say 2019 something happened. It seems to be, if we could be real with you, if I could be really straight up with you, it seems to be that people have a problem with a group of people in the last 4 or 5 years. And if you say you like to be straight up, I'm gonna be straight up too. They're talking a lot about the Biden administration and a lot about the people that came in during the administration. So what I'm saying is, like, how did those people get their license if they don't speak English? And we could go here in circles. At the end of the day, strings were pulled. Some people made money. And at the end of the day, taking me out of the equation is not going to suddenly turn around the industry. The people that's a scammer within their character, they're going to continue to be scammers. It always affects the people who are doing it the right way. Because people that are driving 4 or 5 in a truck probably don't even have a license. So they're probably going to still keep driving. And if it's in your nature to be a scammer, you're going to continue to be a scammer. My thing is, I'm doing it the right way. Why am I being punished? I understand America's safety. I understand America first. I'm an American myself. I keep saying that at this point, circles and circles, but I'm not against the rules. I'm not against the safety. I'm not against the English. What do I got to do to prove myself? What happened to innocent to proven guilty?
I think when we say innocent to proven guilty, we're talking about going through the judicial system. This is the court of public opinion and policy. It's a little different, but your
I
story
guess so,
still
yeah.
deserves to be heard.
Yeah,
And
yeah. I mean,
your life's being affected. And again, it's not, in my personal opinion, it's not your fault. It's the government's fault that it was exploited to the point that it was. And they should come back and fix it. And we shouldn't necessarily just look at it with a blanket statement, because there are people like yourself out there that are caught in the mix. So I appreciate you coming on the show to share your story, and look forward to keeping in touch with you to see how this all shakes out.
I appreciate you allowing me to come on here and say it and speak up. At the end of the day, we live in this country. I'm not going anywhere. And have in mind, just as we're losing our CDL, we're not getting deported. Like, I'm not here illegally. So the fact that they're like, trucking, make America great, trucking's better, and time to go home, I'm not getting deported, guys. Like, I could still hire drivers and run my business. I could get more trucks. Like, we could figure out a way. But what I'm saying is, this whole thing that people assume that we're here illegally, that's what I'm here advocating for. Yes, I might lose my CDL. No, I'm not going to go home. This is my country. This is my home, So when they say, oh, we have created 200,000 new jobs for Americans, no, well, now you shifted those 200 to somewhere else because we can still work. Like, we're still here legally. And that's what I'm trying to get out there.
No, hey, I appreciate
man. I appreciate it.
I appreciate you. You be safe out on that road, and thank you for your time. We're going to go to a message from our sponsors. This segment is brought to you by Hey Bubba AI, the AI dispatcher that searches, books, and manages loads for carriers of all sizes. Less busy work, smoother systems, and more trucks rolling. Hey Bubba AI, dispatch handled. All right, up next, we're going to shift. We're going to talk about freight intelligence exposed. We're going to get inside GenLogs, and we're going to talk about the war on fraud. And you can't have that conversation without having my next guest on the show join us. That's Ryan Joyce, the CEO of GenLogs. How's it going, brother?
I'm doing really well, man. It's great to join. Thanks for having me on.
I'm excited to have this conversation because there's a lot of stuff happening in the industry right now. But fraud is one of those that was at the forefront of a lot of topics. It's still up there in the top 5, obviously, with policy shifts, the ebbs and flows of trucking news. But before we even get into that, let's talk about who is Ryan Joyce, because you don't have a typical background in freight, at least not that I've seen.
No, man, I try to be really upfront about that. We call GenLogs the truck intelligence platform, and I've never been in a truck. I've never loaded a truck. I've never dispatched a truck. The intelligence side is where my background is. So I spent almost 2 decades inside the U.S. intelligence community. A lot of that was spent at CIA, where I was conducting counterterrorism operations throughout the Middle East. I learned Arabic in university and beyond. So my job was to go recruit sources within Al-Qaeda and ISIS to provide us information, and then take that information and look at what we were seeing on satellites and other sensors. And I'll bring all this data together. It's called all source intelligence, in order to stop the next 9/11 or big attack from happening in America or our allies. So that's my background. It's a little bit different than you might
a little bit
some of your other guests.
A little bit. I can say within confidence that you come to the very top of a short list of people I know that was in CIA and in freight.
Well, we're trying to make more. We're hiring a few others on the GenLogs team. Chris Forrest, who's out there representing GenLogs at a lot of our conferences. His background's at CIA too. And look, I just think if we're going to really tackle this fraud and theft issue in a big way, we have to take out the big guns. And that's bringing a lot of the playbook that we use to take down terrorist networks in order to take down these cargo theft and fraudulent networks.
I love that. So let's talk about GenLogs. If I'm a driver or a small carrier listening right now, break down in plain English, what is GenLogs?
Yeah, the simplest way to describe it is we have built over the last few years a nationwide network of cameras along the interstates and highways that are just collecting on commercial vehicle or truck traffic out there. These, to be really clear, these are not traffic cameras or speed cameras. We don't care at the end of the day. We do from a safety perspective, but we're not doing this to harm the truck drivers that are out there on the roads doing God's work every day. What we are doing is going out there and looking at, hey, if we look at all of the patterns of what normal looks like, what stands out as anomalous? Because one thing I learned in CIA was espionage is inherently anomalous activity. Most people on Thursday nights are sitting at home watching TV. A few of us were out at night walking through the back alleys and streets and meeting with sources in order to get clandestine information. And similarly, cargo theft and fraud is anomalous out there. You aren't running the same lanes or servicing shippers in the way that you normally may if you were legitimate. You are changing your placards, you're changing your license plates. There's a lot of activity that occurs that if we can flag, then we can stop and we can get ahead of it, frankly, before it harms legitimate carriers. And that's a big, big focus of what we do.
So you guys built this nationwide sensor network, tracking network, trying to keep track of trucks in real time, trying to prove that there's real trucks out there rather than just the appearance of trucks on paper out there. Why do you believe that that was necessary? Did we get that far down that rabbit hole where fraud was that evolved that like this was the only way to do it? Because a lot of people start up a business and you're talking like, I have a service-based business. I make a website. Like, you had to actually go put equipment out all over the nation. That's no small cost.
No, it's not. And frankly, it was our last resort. We tried every other method out there, from getting access to the existing Department of Transportation cameras. We looked at, could we use electronic logging device data coming in, the ELDs. And frankly, what we saw is some of the problems persisted despite the evolution of ELDs and adoption of ELD data. We saw that the transportation cameras didn't have the resolution enough to actually read a Department of Transportation number. Trust me when I say we didn't want to build this network, but to truly address the fraud and theft, we had to. And so we committed the capital, the blood, sweat, and tears to get this done. And the results, I think, speak for themselves. We have absolutely taken down huge cargo theft networks that were pilfering millions of dollars from shippers. We've taken down cargo theft, fraudulent networks that were impersonating real carriers on the roads and really damaging their reputation. We see that, and we take action on those carriers' behalves directly with law enforcement in order to make sure that we get ahead of it before the reputational damage is done.
So, all right, you're an intelligence guy that's in freight. You got a network of cameras and sensors out there trying to track freight and trucks in an effort to fight fraud. Let's talk about the fraud itself, the problem that led us down this path. Let's call it what it is: fraud, double brokering, identity theft. None of this is new. So why is it getting worse if we've known about it for some time now?
Yeah, I think the problem has been this industry in general is highly fragmented and very opaque. And a lot of the data that's out there is self-reported. In fact, the only stuff that's really not self-reported or self-shared are the actual inspections that the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration gathers from all the states. That was certainly a solid source of data of saying, is this carrier real and running on the roads? But as we all know, those are really infrequent. And in fact, GenLogs regularly sees about 25,000 carriers on the roads that have never had an inspection. And I'll tell you a story a little bit later about why that's harmful to the small carriers, to the newer entrants. But at the end of the day, what we were seeing is that carriers, these double brokers that were operating in the cyber realm solely, were trying to gain access to loads when they actually didn't have any real trucks on the roads and they weren't running on any real lanes. Well, GenLogs was one of the easiest defenses against that. If we hadn't seen you out there operating over the last year, there's a problem, especially when we see some carriers multiple times in a day. Now, what we've seen recently is this sold motor carrier issue, where a real carrier out there on the roads who's been running real loads for brokers or shippers, unfortunately gets to the end and says, I can't do this anymore. The rates are too low, the fuel costs are too high. And so I'm calling it quits, and I'm going to go to some other type of job out there. Well, they know that at the end of the day, they can make another $15,000 to $20,000 selling their motor carrier number in a Facebook group or otherwise. There are people that will buy it. Now, unfortunately, a lot of those folks, there are some out there that are just trying to get a seasoned authority and move forward. Others are absolutely trying to get access to that seasoned motor carrier number so that they can pose as that carrier to get access to freight. And the real danger comes, and where GenLogs has been highly effective in recent months of showing, hey, this is what a carrier's normal patterns look like out there. And they're there every single day on the roads. And then all of a sudden we dropped off, and we haven't seen them for months. And back in December, there was a $3.8 million theft that occurred of these semiconductors. And when we looked at that carrier's profile on the roads, sure enough, we saw them drop off the face of the earth about 6 weeks prior. And unfortunately, that freight brokerage has never stopped to check our system to say, hey, are they still operating? And that led to $3.8 million of theft. And that happens every single day. So that is why the vectors are changing. But what isn't changing is that you either are operating on the roads or you're not. And for the good guys listening to this, the good carriers that are operating there just trying to do God's work, we see you in a good way. And we're able to highlight you to get the freight over the fraudulent actors.
I like that. So what you're doing is you're using this network of sensors. You're using these cameras to prove that there's real trucks operating on the road, not just perceived to be operating on paper. So then someone can go and vet that carrier out and show that there's movement. And then there's even a layer of validity behind it, because if you want to prove you're the carrier, hey, tell us what you were hauling at this time and at this place. It seems like this, at least in my mind, seems like a solid answer to a problem that's been plaguing the industry. So much so that it's $35 billion lost annually.
Yeah, that's 100% correct. And if we can actually get into some of the slides I shared, the second slide there, we can kind of talk through that case. This is a carrier, Anchor Reliable Transport. The owner-operator is Brian Woodring. He had been like a 20-year vet driving for some larger carriers when he decided to go venture off on his own. Went through all the right processes to get his MC number, and he got it, and he got out there, and no brokers would work with him originally because he didn't have an inspection and he didn't have a track record. His authority was less than a year old without any inspections. Well, part of the reason that without any inspections is I know Brian. He keeps a tight ship on his truck. Not a single taillight's going to be out. He's not speeding. He's keeping it under control, which means he's less likely to get pulled in for inspections. Well, what we were able to do for him is validate that he was a real carrier. In fact, we go to the next slide. All I had to ask him was, hey, Brian, your truck number 2016, where was it on March 22nd of this year? And he came back saying, hey, it was in State Line, Indiana, and I was traveling 70 westbound from point A to point B. Well, we observed that. And we were able to then validate him as a legitimate carrier because he was able to answer some things for us that no fraudulent actor that had bought his MC would be able to do. And now he was able to go to those brokers and say, hey, GenLogs has validated me. I'm real. You can see my trucks there. And those brokers started to work with him way before their 1 year threshold that they might normally had, or way before he got an inspection. And we've done this with carrier after carrier now, to the point that we are working on a product for carriers where we would be able to rapidly validate that they are real and give carriers access to their own profile so that they could share their data from a neutral third party, GenLogs, not self-reported, but GenLogs having observed them really operating real trucks on the roads, and then be able to share that with any freight brokerage or shipper out there, even if those brokers or shippers are not customers of GenLogs. We are essentially giving neutral third-party data into the hands of carriers so that they could justify that they're real and then defend against themselves if someone's trying to impersonate them.
So how broken is this system from your vantage point, and what are people not seeing? Because to me, this seems just like common sense. And these aren't new problems. You hear all the time about carriers out there that are new and they can't get freight because they're not proven. We know drivers can't get hired at jobs if they're too clean, but if they're too dirty, they can't be insured. So it seems like this is a common sense approach. What are people missing? What are they not seeing?
I don't think they're missing much other than we haven't done a great job of getting the word out. And we've changed that over the last few months by hiring Emily Pierce and the team, who's helping us market this capability, both to brokers, to shippers, but also to carriers. And we are working on this product now to put into carriers' hands, which is going to be highly powerful. If I can give you another example, if we kind of go to the slide, the fourth slide that I sent over, this was an example of Trans Services Inc. Came to us and said, hey, we're getting some inspections on our under our DOT or MC that isn't us. And we're trying to figure out what is happening out there. Well, this is an intermodal carrier. They pull drayage primarily in the Kansas and Missouri areas. We can kind of see in that Kansas, Missouri, Oklahoma, and that center cluster of the country. That's where they operate. And 91% of the time, or 92% if you see down where that red box is on the left, they are operating with intermodal equipment. But we were seeing them sometimes with dry vans, with car haulers operating on the East Coast. And this did not make sense. This is an example right here of a fraudulent actor that is operating with their motor carrier number on the road, hauling cars and auto haulers down the East Coast, operating in their authority and racking up out of service inspections that are negatively impacting this carrier. And they didn't know it for a while, but GenLogs was observing this on the roads. We could have alerted them. And that's really when we decided we got to take action on behalf of carriers. Like, no one's advocating for carriers these days. So here's some other examples you have on the screen here, where we have real carriers on the left side. We have Akron Trucking and Adnan Express that were being impersonated on the right side by the same truck. One week he was Akron Trucking, the other is Adnan Express. In fact, if you go to the next slide, we've seen that one truck impersonating 7 different carriers out on the roads. What this carrier ended up being was the Sing organization, the large carrier theft network cargo theft network that was taken down last year. GenLogs was watching as this ring was starting to impersonate new carriers, active carriers that were on the roads. At the time, MedSpeed LLC was operating in the Chicago area, but this carrier was operating, or this fictitious actor, cargo thief, was operating at MedSpeed LLC on the roads, and not just operating, but stealing $1 million of freight. And of course, MedSpeed LLC got all of the freight guards, got all of the freight, watch reports put in, and it wasn't them, and that was actually being a thief on the road, was being fraudulent. And so GenLogs is uniquely poised to be able to separate truth from fiction, from be able to from good from bad. And once a carrier enrolls with us, which we are going to allow that to happen soon, we are going to be able to do overwatch on the roads for them and flag whenever someone else is operating in their authority and work with law enforcement to stop it in its tracks before it gets to the point of harming their good name.
No, that's pretty cool stuff. So you had that Sing organization. We all were aware of that. We covered the stories. You saw them everywhere. People seemed like they were very surprised at how elaborate this was. But in its essence, it was actually very simple. They were fraudulently operating, switching their names, and moving faster than the system could catch them. So when we look at how GenLogs fits into all of this, you guys preventing the fraud? Are you guys catching it? Are you exposing it? Like, how does that look?
Yeah, for now, we've kind of been a defensive layer that a freight broker says, hey, I've never worked with this carrier before. Should I work with them? Well, they can look in our system and say, hey, does the digital footprint match the physical footprint? If that carrier is onboarding with you, or they're bidding off of a load board saying, hey, I could carry this from Dallas to Chicago and it's a flatbed load. Have we generally seen that carrier out there with flatbeds running along that area? Or is it a West Coast carrier that runs flatbeds when the actual load is East Coast reefer? That's going to show us some potential changes there. And we're going to be able to see that footprint out there. So it's been a great defensive layer. Where we're evolving to at GenLogs is being a near real-time flag or trigger whenever something is amiss out there. So recently, we had a few chameleon carriers that U.S. Department of Transportation shut down and pulled their authorities. It was a imminent hazard. Hey, you guys can no longer operate after some big crashes. Well, GenLogs has observed over the last few weeks that activity has continued. They've bought new authorities. In one case, they have an authority that the MCS 150 with FMCSA has 0 trucks registered. And yet GenLogs saw about 20 to 100 trucks suddenly balloon under that authority just for about a week or two before they shut down and then went to the next authority. And they are just cycling through these authorities. Well, GenLogs is now seeing that in real time. We're seeing all of those trucks jump to another authority. And we are now at the point where we can stop that. The moment we see it up front, an alarm bell can go off. We can work with law enforcement. We can shut them down. And by the way, that is all freight that is going, like the dollars of that freight is going to someone. I'd rather it not go to this chameleon carrier network. I'd rather it go to the great men and women that are out there operating every day, just trying to make a living here. And yet the fraudsters and the cargo thieves and the chameleon carriers, they're the ones where that dollars are accruing. And we need to stop that right away.
So let's talk about some of the notable wins. You already kind of took some of the thunder on that. You had the Sting organization Crackdown, but that's not the only one. There's plenty of these bad guys out there. Without technology like yours, do these cases ever get solved?
You kind of got to get lucky without the technology like GenLogs. Looking for the phone to ring with someone telling you, hey, I got inside information and this trailer is at this place. Well, with GenLogs now, that almost has flipped the script where it becomes way more difficult and painful to actually be a fraudster or cargo thief out there. And over the last few years, GenLogs has helped recover about 5,000 plus trailers, in some cases stolen trucks. If you go to our website right now, genlogs.io, at the upper right-hand corner is a button that says Find Lost Assets. That is a button that anyone in the industry that has any issues with something lost, stolen, or missing can come and report that. And we have a team that will go hunt that down for you. That is a free service that we offer for the entire industry. It has really helped us understand what are the actual evolving trends and the threats that are happening out there. But through that button and submission, there have been owner operators that their one and only trailer was taken, and that's their livelihood there. And they've come and reported it. And within a day, GenLogs has been able to find who took it, where are they, and work with law enforcement to get that back in their hands. We've done that over 5,000 times, and we're continuing to do that for our customers. So that's really the power now GenLogs provides, is this visibility where we filter out all private vehicles, we blur all windows. Like, we are not trying to intrude on privacy. What we are trying to do is prove legitimacy. And that's what we do on a daily basis.
No, that seems like really cool stuff, and it's very interesting to get the backstory, like the motivation, also the path that you found this, because naturally, like I said earlier in the interview, you see people come out with service-based or tech-based solutions, but it's very rarely like hard assets going all over the place. What's ahead for GenLogs? Like, are you guys going to continue to put more sensors out there? Are there areas that are exposed that you guys are really focused on?
Yeah, so there's a few expansions that you're going to see GenLogs doing over the coming year. First is we are going beyond the U.S. borders. So we have a lot of requests from brokerages and shippers to collect the same type of data down in Mexico and up in Canada. And then look at that cross-border activity as well. Hey, when does a truck, and get to the border in Laredo? When are they finally in Laredo? And we're providing some of that visibility now. We could do a better job. And so our first sensor should be going into Mexico here pretty soon, the first of many, and we'll be expanding our south of the border as well as north of the border. So you're going to see some geographic expansion. Over the last year, we've also expanded into some U.S. ports. So we have our sensors at the port gates. They're monitoring what are the trucks entering, exiting, what are the pairings with chassis and containers. We've had some discussions with some of the Class 1 rails about expanding that to the rail ramps. So if you kind of think about GenLogs over the next few years, expanding not only beyond the U.S. borders, but within the U.S., we are putting more and more sensors out there. In fact, we want to get to the point that no one's getting lost out there where they're not being seen. Because as more and more brokerages are depending upon GenLogs to tell them, can I work or should I work with this carrier or not? For a small carrier that's doing short haul and local kind of regions or maybe intrastate, we want to make sure that they're not getting lost or missed here, that we can say, no, they're real. And here they are. And so you're going to see our team putting more and more sensors out there in the US and abroad. And then, of course, we saw just last week that load of Kit Kats was stolen, and it didn't happen in the United States. It happened in Europe. So I think that GenLogs over the coming decade could be going more internationally, where the same core technology—
Going worldwide.
Worldwide, man. The moment that they struck the chocolate, we were like, we got to get involved.
Yeah, not the Kit Kats.
Don't touch the chocolate. Yeah.
Well, Ryan, I appreciate you coming on the show and sharing your story, GenLog's story. But like all good things, well, this has to come to an end as well. Appreciate your time. I'm going to, leave you guys with a message from Secretary Duffy. It's the temperature check of the industry right now. It's the message from the DOT. But this was Break Check. I'm Charles Gracie, and make sure to tune in Thursday right here on FreightWaves TV.
Trucking is as American as it gets, but something has changed. I'm telling you, the open road ain't quite what it used to be.
Every week, we seem to hear about another
Trucking
crash
companies
involving
who
an
had
illegal
hired
alien behind the wheel.
trucker who caused a fatal crash in Indiana that killed 4.
Can you speak to English?
200,000 immigrant truck drivers will lose their commercial driver's license.